Hello and welcome to Brodual, and welcome to the fourth part of our Requiem series. This section focuses on combat and attributes. To fully understand some of the changes in this video, you're going to have to watch the first three parts of the series. For example, a lot of the changes to combat work together with the changes to skills and perks, and of course the entire mod revolves around the new unleveled world. So if you missed any of those videos, then you can find links to them all down below. Before we look at combat, we'll start with your attributes and how they've changed with Requiem. Just like perks, your health, magicka and stamina now play a much bigger role. Similar to older games, they'll now give passive buffs, with magicka representing willpower and intelligence, stamina standing for dexterity, part endurance and speed, and health also reflecting your raw physical power. So for every 40 points of each attribute, you'll receive different passive buffs. So for magicka, you receive magical resistance and regen. For health, you receive a damage increase with melee weapons as well as an increase in carry weight. It also increases your resistance to poison and disease. And finally, stamina increases your damage with bows, your movement speed, and again your resistance to poison and disease. So that's just something to keep in mind as your character levels up and grows during your adventure. For the most part, combat now varies a lot more depending on what you're fighting, the equipment you're using, and how skilled your player is. Just like a large portion of Skyrim with Requiem installed, the difficulty is also now static, so turning it up or down won't have any effect. There's so many more details to take into account, on top of the fact that enemies are now unleveled and continually play the same role throughout your playthrough. So after you just escape Helgen, bandits will be just as strong as they are after you've visited the Greybeards, or even after you've participated in the Civil War. And because of that, it means you can pull together some sort of tactics before fighting a particular enemy. Most people who first try Requiem without fully understanding the changes will leave Helgen and run straight into the three wolves near Riverwood, thinking they'll be a piece of cake, but realistically they'll be lucky to escape with their lives. Stamina is now a much bigger thing to take into account. As we also covered in the skills and perks video, your stamina will drain faster depending on the amount of equipment you're wearing unless you're invested in the right perks. Stamina will now also be drained by jumping and swimming, similar to older titles. So thinking you can escape a wolf's bite by leaping to a high ledge is no longer a valid tactic. There's also now a new disarming system, and if your stamina is empty, then every time an enemy hits you there's a small chance you'll drop your weapon. Bows and crossbows can even be broken if you're bashed while holding them, forcing you to switch to a melee weapon to engage in melee combat. However, on the upside, arrows are much more deadly and you can take unarmoured human targets down in 1 or 2 hits. However, you'll have to think twice about using a bow against a heavily armoured target. And you'll also have to take into account how skilled your character is in archery. If you don't have the right perks, the damage will drop significantly the further the arrow travels. Staggering and bashing has also been changed. You can no longer guarantee a bash on your enemy with a shield or power attack, and it'll only trigger if you time it correctly. So for a bash to happen, you'll need to hit them just before the enemy is about to strike. It's quite hard to do against enemies using one-handed weapons, but you can always save your bashes for when the enemy is readying a power attack. Knocking an enemy back also depends on a variety of other things, including their armor rating, the type of enemy, whether they currently have an armor buff, or whether they're currently blocking or using a ward. On top of that, armor now plays a much bigger role, and as long as you have the right perks invested, then heavy armor is great against incoming arrows and enemies wielding swords. But armor piercing is now a much bigger thing, and axes and hammers will smash through iron armor as if it were leather. One major thing to take into account is that all of the changes I've mentioned so far apply to NPCs too. So enemy archers are extremely dangerous, and you'll have to either take them out before they see you or wear some heavy armor if archers are lurking in the distance. We also found that charging right at them to disarm the enemy is a valid tactic too. Human NPCs are also much smarter than they are in the vanilla game, and they now actually fight for their lives. So they'll grab the best weapon possible, they'll block, bash, stock up on potions and poisons, and they'll even flee if they don't think they have a chance of winning. What's great is that animals are more likely to flee because their natural instinct kicks in, but certain proud races would rather fight to the death than flee like a coward. Unique NPCs also come with unique traits. For example, experienced mages will most likely use spells like Detect Life to find you if you try to hide by sneaking. Creatures with no clear vulnerable anatomy also can't be sneak attacked to get the bonus damage. Draugr are also much more difficult, and they're essentially walking tanks without pain or emotion, so arrows and one-handed weapons won't do much. Dragons are now truly gruesome creatures. They're protected by a strong shell of scales, giving them a high armor rating. They're also resistant to the element of their breath, but to counter that, dragons with Requiem will follow their colour pattern, so red and yellow dragons will always use fire and white ones will always use frost. And that's pretty much everything you need to know to have a fighting chance with Requiem. We used this example in a previous video, but it also applies here too. Requiem is a role-playing mod, so before heading into a fight, put yourself in the shoes of your character and think accordingly. Archers hit hard, so take them out first. Mages are extremely powerful, but lack any kind of armor, so an arrow or two into their back will silence them before the fight even begins. As long as you think like that, you should be fine. And that's the end of this section. As always, everything you need is down below, and the next video will focus on Skyrim's atmosphere with Requiem. So until then, thanks for watching.